Shalom, family. Happy December to you guys. I wanted to talk. This study can be for my brothers or my sisters, but mainly for my sisters. I have a question. What can we learn from the account of Potiphar's wife? The story of Joseph and Potiphar's wife in Genesis 39 family contains some obvious lessons about fidelity in the face of sexual temptation. And there are also some points to be found about the loyal character of God. The story is dramatic. Jacob's son, Joseph, is in Egypt, where he is Potiphar's servant and is the most trusted overseer, brothers and sisters, in the household. Potiphar's wife sees that Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while said, "Come to bed with me." Genesis 39, 6 through 7. Potiphar's wife family tries to seduce Joseph, but he refuses her advances. "My masters have withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" Genesis 39, verse 9. Brothers and sisters, Joseph is loyal both to Potiphar and to God. Potiphar's wife doesn't give up, though. She spoke to Joseph day after day, but he refused to go to bed with her or even to be with her, period. He didn't even want to be in her presence. The wise course Joseph takes, choosing not to be alone with Potiphar's wife, if he could help it. Like I said, he just avoided her altogether. He tried his best to. But then, coming to a turning point in Joseph's life, one day he went into the house to attend his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. Potiphar's wife caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out the house. Genesis 39, 11 through 12. Potiphar's wife, spurred again, stands there with Joseph's cloak in her hand, and she chooses an angry, vindictive plan. She called her household servants. "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew came here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me, he screamed for help. He left his cloak beside me and ran out the house." Verses 14 through 15. See, that's how vindictive some women are, and still are to this day, when they don't get what they want. They will start rumors, they will have delusional imaginations, especially ladies, if you are married. Pray for your husband, protect your husband, because there are women like this, sadly. They're everywhere. But Joseph was strong enough, with God. When Potiphar came home, his wife showed him, Joseph's cloak and repeated the lie. "As soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out the house. This is how your slave treated me." Genesis 39, 18 through 19. Potiphar, outraged at Joseph's supposed betrayal, put him in prison in verse 20. This is much in the story of Potiphar's wife about resisting sexual temptation, family also. A brash woman tempts a man, pulling on his clothes and saying, "Lie with me." The man flees from her, and so suddenly that he acts and leaves his garment in her hand. Joseph doesn't stand there gazing at the woman or lusting over the woman, considering whether or not he should sleep with her. He immediately gets out of there, bro. He's like gone. You can see more about that in 1 Corinthians 6:18. Joseph's wise handling of the situation with Potiphar's wife is directly contrasts the foolhardy actions of the simple man in Proverbs. Solomon sees a fool walking towards the house of an adulterous woman. Proverbs 7:8. When the fool drew near, she took hold of him and kissed him with a brazen face. Verse 13. Rather than run away like Joseph, the foolish man stayed to listen to her family. With persuasive words, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk in verse 21. And with a high price for his foolishness, all at once he followed her like an ox going to the slaughter in verse 22. One could argue that Joseph too paid a high price. His virtue landed him in prison. But one has to read the rest of Genesis to see the blessings that God had in store for Joseph for being obedient. It is interesting, family, to note also in Genesis 39, does it not say anything about Joseph's feelings for Potiphar's wife? Excuse me. Or that he was attracted to her. Did he find her beautiful or interesting? How long did they have a perfectly normal and friendly relationship, servant and mistress, before she chose to attempt the seduction? It doesn't say anything about that because he didn't. None of these, none of that is in the Bible. The heart of the issue is that Potiphar's wife promised happiness and sexual satisfaction, but Joseph saw sin for what it was, refusing to do it. This is great wickedness, Genesis 39:9. Joseph feared God, family, knowing that all sin is ultimately against him, the Almighty, Psalms 51:4. And saying no to Potiphar's wife, Joseph basically showed himself to be wise. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and all who follow his precepts have good understanding. Psalms 111:10. The incidents with Potiphar's wife book in both two passages that speak of God's love and blessing to Joseph. Joseph found favor in the eyes of the Egyptians among whom he lived and rose to a position of prominence in the house of Potiphar. Genesis 39 verses 1 through 6, family. Joseph's success and position was the direct result of God's blessing. When Joseph was wrongly accused and sent to prison, God remained faithful, as he always does, family. God showed Joseph kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. Soon the keeper of the prison had to put Joseph in charge of other prisoners and trusted him so fully that we no longer pay attention to anything that was under Joseph's control. Everything Joseph did succeeded because the Lord was with Joseph. The story of Potiphar's wife is about loyalty as much as it is about resisting temptation, family. Potiphar's wife was disloyal to her husband, but Joseph was loyal to both Potiphar and God. God shows us amazing loyalty and faithfulness when we do the same. And everybody makes mistakes, family, but if you have in the past, learn from it and never do it again. It is a part of his character. He is a compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness.